The next video interview was played to the jury. This was recorded on August 29th last year. The interview is with CHERYL KORBE'Ls. The detective says, in your own time, can you tell me what happened on the evening of the shooting? CHERYL says, me and Liv had just come back from having tea with me and my best friend Gemma and her daughter. Liv had gone upstairs to watch a bit of telly before getting ready for bed. Hayley and Trish come in to have a cuppa. Liv was up and down. She'd come down to say hello. She'd been and got washed. She said goodnight to the girls and myself. But it was quite warm, so she'd come down. She needed the toilet and a drink. Then, at 9:30, she came back down because she was too hot. I said, take your pyjamas off, just to cool her down, and open the window. It must have been about 9:45 p.m, or 10 to 10. We were sat talking, and we heard. We weren't sure whether it was fireworks or gunshots. I jumped up and went outside onto the path. I was in the path, to the end of my car. As I looked down the street to my left, I'd just seen these. I seen one fella had crossed over from the other side of the road, like coming in front of Rob's car next door. I spotted this lad behind him, all in black. I realised at this point it was gunshots, and the other one was running after him. I realised he was running towards me. I ran back into the house. After a brief pause, CHERYL continues. I shut the door, but the door wasn't shut. It never caught fully because it was on the catch, because we go into each other's houses. We messaged to say we put the snip on so they could just come in. I tried to keep hold of the door. There was just screaming to go away. I heard the gunshot. I realised because I felt it. It hit my hand. I couldn't keep the door shut with my hand. I couldn't keep it shut. I heard the baby screaming. That's when I turned round and spotted her sat at the bottom of the stairs. I went over and pulled her to the left. I just huddled over her. Ryan was at the top of the stairs screaming what's going on. Screaming get out, telling the lad. By this time the lad had fell through the front door, lying in the hall. I shouted to Ryan to come and help me get the baby up the stairs because I couldn't lift her on my own. He come down and helped me get her. We got her onto the bend of the stairs. She was too heavy. Ryan had hold of her because I had to stop. It was bleeding everywhere. I had to hold my arm. We were just screaming to get an ambulance. I said, love, I can't do this. I tried to move the baby again up the top of the stairs. I heard the lad downstairs shouting, please lad, don't. I heard another gunshot. I couldn't keep her awake. Ryan said to me, I can't do this. He started shouting, Liv, Liv. She went all floppy and her eyes went to the back of her head. I realised she must have been hit because I didn't know until then, and I lifted her top up. The bullet had gone right through the middle of her chest. Rob next door came in and done CPR on the baby. They were telling him what to do. I shouted for Ryan to go and phone his dad. I could hear Chloe on the phone to the police or ambulance. I knew she'd gone. Then the police turned up and come up, just picked her up and took her out the house. By this time when I come down, I had no idea where the lad was, but he wasn't in the hall. There were tons of people outside. The police were there. I screamed, is anyone going to come to see my wrist? I said I'd been shot in the hand. The next minute the medical team started bandaging me up. I remember going through corridors and I was in this room. They gave me painkillers. I screamed I wanted my baby. I was constantly screaming about the baby. I needed to go to the baby because as far as I was aware, she'd gone on her own. At some point, I spoke to Antonia. That was after someone had come in and told me that Liv had gone. I just went hysterical, screaming I wanted my baby. I wanted Ryan. I wanted Chloe. They said they were taking me for an x-ray, scanning my hand. Everything was spinning. I thought I was dying myself. I thought I was dying in the ambulance. Antonia told me she was with the baby. I told her not to leave her on her own, and she promised me she wouldn't. She said she looked like she was sleeping. Then I dropped the phone. I just wanted to go to her. The detective goes back to the shooting, and CHERYL says she'd gone home about 7:20. She says Chloe and Ryan was in. I remember saying to them, going for tea. I was worried about the older ones having something to eat. I was worried about the other ones getting something to eat. They had the offer on getting the kids' meals for £1. I said to Chloe, me and Liv were going to go with Gemma and Holly for something to eat. It was something to do, and with her being on holiday from school. CHERYL explains that they went to the Tobury Carvery on Queen's Drive. They were there when I got back, says CHERYL. Ryan was in his room. Chloe was upstairs. She'd come down and seen us, then went back upstairs. She said her neighbours came round about 8:30. Her 3 children were all upstairs. She says, we heard 2 bangs. What we thought were gunshots, but at the same time, they sounded like fireworks. I just jumped up and went out to have a look. Our street is so dark. I said for months the lighting they've put in is just ridiculous. I keep seeing like a grey and orange jacket. The other one was a lot of black and something round his face. The first lad that was shot, I never seen his face even when he was in the house, because I was too busy concentrating on the baby. It might sound daft, although he was running, it was like it was in slow motion. I can't make sense of it myself. The detective asks, do you feel like he was running towards you? CHERYL replies, yeah. The detective asks about the man behind him. CHERYL says he was all in black. The detective asks, did you see any part of his face at all? No, said CHERYL. The detective asks, at that moment, what is going through your mind? CHERYL says, I just needed to get back into the house. When I realised he'd got to Rob's car, I didn't think for 1 minute that he was right behind me. As I've got back in through the door, as I've turned, I've seen him running up the path, and I shut the door quick. He was trying to push it open and tried my best to keep it shut. I don't know why I never put the handle up. I had my left arm up. I had my hand, I think it was on the handle. The detective asks, what could you feel going on at the door? CHERYL says, like it was being pushed. The detective says, were you managing to keep the door shut? CHERYL says, yeah, until I got shot. I think Chloe was still upstairs. Ryan was upstairs because he was shouting at the top of the stairs to me what's going on. Trish and Hayley were still in the living room. When I turned around and realised the baby was behind me, because she'd obviously come down the stairs because she'd heard. The detective asks, did you realise what happened? CHERYL says, yeah, my wrist blood was just squirting everywhere. I felt it. I heard a shot, and then I felt it go through my wrist. It was just everywhere. Do you remember in that moment saying anything? Asked the detective. Cheryl says, I screamed I'd been shot. The detective asks, can you hear anything going on outside? Cheryl says, no, I just heard screaming in the house. The detective said, you said you heard Liv then? And Cheryl says, she said something. I don't know whether it was Mum, but when I turned around, she was just sat there still, on the bottom stair. It was the bottom, or the second stair. I realised that must have been when she was hurt, because I didn't know until we got up in the middle of the stairs. The door flew open. I was huddled over the baby, because I couldn't lift her up by myself because of the arm. I was trying to keep the blood from going everywhere. I shouted Ryan to come and help me get her up the stairs, because she was heavy. It's like she wasn't helping me. We got her into the middle of the stairs, and she was gasping for breath. I was screaming at her to stay with me. The ambulance would be there in a minute. Rob came in and we got her further up onto the top of the stairs. I thought she must have been hit to go like that. There was blood everywhere. I kept saying it was mine. It was mine. But the way she went, I knew it wasn't right. I lifted her top because I was checking to see. That's when I realised she'd been shot in the chest. The phone was on the floor. The ambulance was on the phone telling him what to do. I was just screaming, please Liv, stay with me. I said to Rob, she's gone. The detective asks when she saw that the door had opened. Cheryl says, I didn't see anything because I was over the baby. I needed to get her up the stairs. I didn't turn around at that point. I saw the lad slumped in the hallway. He looked as though he was on his phone. There was a phone in the hall with a square thing. It looked like a card of some sort. He had his head down. It was only as I've come out and I've spotted the phone, I found out later that he was picked up. As I was crouched over the baby because the door had swung open, I heard him saying, please lad, don't. And that's when I heard the second gunshot, and I screamed to Ryan, help me get her up the stairs. No, I'd asked Ryan to help me get her up the stairs, and we were going up the stairs. I heard a gunshot because I heard him saying, please lad, don't, and he still shot him. Ryan was screaming for him to get out. Cheryl explained she didn't see anything of the second man when she was back in the house. She also says that she didn't see the injured man leave. He was there 1 minute, then he was gone. I don't even know who it was. Ryan said he'd come down the stairs to help me get Liv back up, and I heard Ryan. It was like he froze. He didn't know what to do. It was like he was caught in the headlights. He didn't know where to be. I just heard him saying, Joey, get out the house. The detective asks, did you know who he was referring to? Cheryl says, it must have been the lad on the phone. I found out who it was. She also said she didn't see a weapon. I heard it, but I didn't see it. The detective asks, and the sound of it? Horrendous. Horrendous. It was like, I don't know, says Cheryl. How many gunshots do you think you heard? Cheryl says 4, 2 before I went out and 2 during. It was like off a movie, the sounds they make. It was the sound of going through my wrist as well. It's hard to explain that sound. The detective says, it's something that'll stay with you forever. Cheryl says, yeah. The detective says, the gunman, did he say any words at all? Cheryl says, I never heard him say anything. You didn't see any of his face? Says the detective. No, says Cheryl. When he's running, is your main focus on the first guy? Says the detective. Cheryl says, I spotted the first one, and then it's like the second one came into focus, because although I was looking at the first one, I couldn't see his face. Then the second one came into view. It's when I realised it was a shooting.